Hi, I'm Zibby Owens, and I am the host of this podcast, Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. I am also a newly minted USA Today best-selling author of the novel Blank. I've created a whole community of book lovers around this podcast, a publishing company, reading retreats, a bookstore, and more. Learn more at zibbymedia.com or follow me on social at Zibby Owens or join the community at Zibby Readers. Teddy Wayne is the author of The Winner, a novel. Teddy is the author of 6 novels and the winner of a Whiting Writers Award. Also, winner of an NEA Creative Writing Fellowship and a finalist for the Young Lions Fiction Award, Penn Bingham Prize, and Dayton Literary Peace Prize. A former columnist for the New York Times and McSweeney's, and a frequent contributor to The New Yorker. He has taught at Columbia University and Washington University in St. Louis. He has developed films and series from his novels with Columbia Pictures, HBO, MGM Television, and others. And The Winner had a big announcement with it as well. He lives in Brooklyn with his wife, the writer Kate Greathead, and their children. Welcome, Teddy. Thank you so much for coming on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books to discuss The Winner. Congrats.
Thank you.
I devoured this book. It's so good. Oh my gosh, it's going to be such a hit. I'm just calling it now in case you were unclear that was going to happen. It's so great. Anyway, why don't you tell listeners what it's about, and we'll go from there.
Sure. The Winner is the story of Connor O'Toole, who's a young law school graduate who finds himself unemployed in the summer of 2020 during the pandemic. To make money, he takes a job for the summer as a tennis pro at an old money WASP community near Cape Cod. While there, he starts giving lessons to a divorced woman about twice his age. She soon starts paying him for services that are off the court. I'll use euphemisms here. Soon after that, he begins a more age-appropriate relationship with a girl his own age, and complications ensue. And I won't get too far into it, but it gets very complicated for him.
Yeah, I could not believe some of these twists and turns. And first of all, the setting itself, I feel like I know exactly, I would be able to navigate around this whole Cotter's Neck, it's called, right? Cotter's Neck.
Cutter's Neck. Uh-huh.
Cutter's Neck. Cutters, right? They keep calling it Cutters. So first of all, you put us in such a place. And then your characters are so incredibly real and flawed, but so real. How did you do that? Where did Connor come from? Where did the story come from? And what are the secrets to creating characters that are so vivid and real?
Well, the setting was the easiest in that it's based geographically almost identically on a place my wife's extended family has a summer place. And so there's a community much like that. There's a quote-unquote yacht club, which is a place where people swim. There are no actual yachts. There's a very extravagant mansion at the end of the point, it's called, which is what Catherine, the older woman's house, is based off. So that part was easy, and we'd been going there for years, and I always thought that would be a great setting and backdrop for a novel, but I never knew what that novel would entail. Then the pandemic hit, and I thought this is a really good setting to explore socioeconomic inequality in America, the kind of paranoia and anxiety that the pandemic brought on, even though the pandemic is there in the novel, it's kind of in the background, but it's always lurking. And so that the setting was the easy part. The characters were, a little tougher, as they always are. You want to start with individuals rather than types. So even though both Connor and Catherine, I think, could be boiled down to a certain type, if you start with that universal type, you'll get a stereotype. If you start with individual characteristics of them, Connor is a sort of a classic Horatio Alger, pull yourself up by the bootstraps young guy who's raised by a single mom. His dad died when he was young. He discovered an aptitude for tennis when he was young, and that enabled him to get a scholarship to college and so on. But then thinking about other things about him that would distinguish him, yes, he's a good tennis player, but he's not your classically overpowering tennis player, and not to get too in the weeds of tennis for this podcast, but he's what's known as a pusher, a defensive specialist who hits the ball back safely. And that's maybe against the grain of what you'd expect for a novel about a guy who's good at a sport. You'd think there's being incredible, but in fact, he's not that good. He's just plays safe and steady and conservatively, and he wins through that. So that's this kind of example of, I think, a detail that I hope sets him apart from too stock a character. Same with Catherine, of course. There's other aspects of her personality that I hope set her apart. And sometimes it's, certain lines that people have said in real life that you remember and hang on to, and that you put in the mouths of characters, and suddenly they become that individual that who said that. But
Okay,
only occasionally.
who said what? Let's just spill right now.
I'm very this is she's not at all based on this woman, but a woman I'm very fond of who's older. Once when I was there in the real life Cutter's Neck last summer, in fact, I got impromptu invited to a wine tasting. Sorry to sound so ritzy about it. I was dressed in like, shorts and a t-shirt, but I was invited along. It's casual. It's a casual place, more so than Cutter's actually is. I was carrying a seltzer, a can of seltzer, and also wearing like a baseball hat. Looked a little bit unkempt, but again, it's a casual place. As we started to go in, the woman, she's about 70, said, maybe don't bring the seltzer. It's a little middle class. And I always thought that was a great. And she apologized later and sent me a long text about it, and was very abashed about it. But call something a little middle class, I thought was a funny line that I put in the mouth of Catherine. Catherine is not at all based on this woman, whom again I'm very fond.
I understand. I understand. If this woman is listening, it's not you. How is this different than your world and where you're from and your summers or whatever? Like, how has that been? Like, what was your story?
I'm from New York, and the main difference is I'm like a secular Jew and just went to summer camp in the summers, and have been around plenty of privileged people in my time. Certainly, this feels like a different culture completely. This is old money wasps, and it's a very much a different set of customs. Again, I think that middle class line wouldn't come out in places I'm from necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
And from things like as basic as men wearing pink Nantucket red shorts, which when I first saw when I came to this place, and was sort of surprised by to see men wearing light salmon pink shorts, to the bigger issues of inherited money and knowing that your life is completely set out for you. And I think the complications that produces in some people, it leads to a kind of maybe slackerly laziness. They don't feel like they have to earn anything. And so others, it leads to this kind of guilt that the girl he starts dating, I think, feels, and a desire to make amends for it and to prove herself in her own right. She's an aspiring writer. So there are a number of differences from what I've encountered, even if, I've been around spaces of privilege that are somewhat comparable, if not quite comparable to this.
Interesting. So, do you have a law background at all, by the way? Or because there is a lot of
like a lot of questions. The research was all. Both my sister-in-law is a lawyer, but then I asked a DA that I know a lot of criminal law questions. Again, without spoiling too much, there's criminal law parts of this novel, and then a New York police detective I also asked a lot of questions of.
Well, I am, I don't want to give anything away either, but I feel like you're good at, I don't want to say anything, but I was going to make some joke about, but I'm not going to. So
drawing from real life experience, maybe, or
yeah, moving on. No, I was going to make a joke just about like how you could cover your tracks in such a way. I wonder like all the things that you've secretly done, in your life. It seems very thought out, and I wouldn't want to be,
I now have a better idea of how to do it. I
Yes.
spent a lot of time talking about cell phones and what cell phones keep track of for you, and in fact, again, without spoiling anything, the DA I spoke to gave me the idea for pretty much the final twist of the novel.
Wow.
And the detective has confirmed that works. And he, in fact, texted me a couple weeks ago about a real life case of them doing the same sort of thing with it.
Oh my gosh.
So that's I guess another example of how you make. It's not about character; it's a plot idea.
Right.
But talking to people who really know these things inside out, and the DA said that not many people even know about this thing. Certainly civilians don't. Not even all cops, I think, know about this twist that occurs. Reveal.
Interesting. Well, to your point also about the societal class culture, inherited wealth thing, you have a scene where a bunch of the children, grandchildren, the younger generation, they're all like sitting around, talking about how they're getting out of work and their internships and, just totally messing around and whatever. And, Connor is just sitting there being like, I cannot believe this, just one of many moments where Like, why does their life, why do they get to just like slack off when here I am literally like hitting a tennis ball against a wall and, doing everything in my power to try to change my station in life, whereas they've been handed this and they're not even working hard. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, again, the real life inspirations are not nearly as bad as the characters in the book. So let me make that clear. But I think class is a very important subject that seems to get underwritten about in contemporary literature. I think about 100 years ago, it was written about much more when America was kind of discovering itself, getting a lot of money. People started realizing social class is a sort of new thing we've got to reckon with. And a lot of novels from 1890 to 1930 or even 1940 dealt with it. What I really think is the case is that because so many authors and editors and people in the book industry at large are kind of from like an upper middle class white background, if not strictly financially, then in social signifiers. Everyone who writes a book now or edits a book or publicizes a book probably reads the New York Times and listens to NPR and so on. I could run through the list of things there. And so that's fine. That's what I do too. But we shouldn't treat it as the default. I think we should interrogate that and interrogate what it means to not have all that much money, or what it means to come to have a novel set in a ritzy summer place like this and not treat it like it's standard to have this kind of summer house. But so therefore, through the eyes of a character for whom this is all novel, it would those kind of differences would be most obvious and stark, I think, when he's seeing his own contemporaries, people around his age who have their lives laid out for him. I think ultimately, you don't want to. His mentor, when he's younger, tells him you don't want to be ranked number one in the world. You don't want to be the top of the ranking. You want to be just below it and be satisfied with that. Be satisfied with what you have. That's real happiness. That's real stability. That's real security. Because the people on top are always actually wanting more and more and more because they are afraid of losing their perch. And so you want to be ranked, in tennis terms, ranked fifth in the world, but be kind of satisfied with being fifth. It's still a great place to be, but you're not going to kill yourself and be, ruined with anxiety that you're not number one, nor will you fear that everyone's gunning for you. So that's really one of the bigger issues Connor grapples with over the summer is he starts getting a little corrupted and wanting to become that number one slot.
I mean, do we really think that the number 5 slot, like who is it now, like Medvedev or something? Like, do you think that they're like he's really happy about that? You don't think he's
No,
gunning
I
for
think they
number
are.
one?
I think in sports, I think they do always want to be number one. I think in American class terms,
Yeah.
maybe it's okay to be, 96th percent of income. I think it's a pretty good life. And if you're happy with it and don't feel like you need to get to the 99th percentile, you might be happier than someone who's always on top, working themselves to death and afraid that they'll lose it all someday because it's all premised upon just this sort of insane degree of wealth, and it's hard to keep up. So I've always thought, even in non-monetary terms, it's good to be ambitious because it does drive you, but to be too ambitious is its own type of poison.
So what does that say about your own ambition?
I've it's been tempered some because I have 2 young kids. That goes a long way. One of them, my 5-year-old son Angus, is in another room now. He's homesick from school.
Oh no.
Yeah, he's fine. But when you have to start thinking about other people and can't just think about your own life and own career and own success, it goes a long way towards changing your ambitions from I want to write the number one ranking novel, which is never going to happen anyway, to I want to be the number one dad. And I got a coffee mug that says number one dad. No, I didn't get I did not get that. I did not get that coffee mug. But you want to be you start caring more about other things beyond financial or reputational success.
That is very sweet. Well, I hope Angus stocks your cabinet with lots of number one dad mugs. What is your relationship like with tennis? Are you a big tennis player?
I played as a kid a lot. I was on the high school team. I peaked at about age 15. I think I was the number one rank on my ninth grade JV team. And then by 10th grade, everyone had shot past me. Something happened that summer. I don't know what it was. So I played a lot as a kid. I still play occasionally now, just really in the summers. And like, I don't really watch it anymore. I used to be a fan of the sport too. I kind of stopped watching most sports at this point, but have always enjoyed it as this sort of, there's a literary poetic feel to it. There's something very beautiful about literally the aesthetic background of a tennis court is usually something nice visually about it, but the game itself, the slices, the spins, the angles, I've always been closer to Connor, more of a pusher, but really more of like a, I don't know what you'd call me, sort of like a junk baller in baseball would be the term. Someone who gets by with like weird spins and slices that confuse the opponent rather than actually being good at the sport. But that there's something fun about that, more of a tactical approach and figuring out how to win at the margins rather than winning through playing well. There's a book I read, I think when I was younger, our tennis coach in high school loved this book called Winning Ugly by Brad Gilbert. And I
Hmm.
adapted various stratagems.
Brad Gilbert was Andre Agassi's coach, wasn't he?
And he kind of changed his game. And things from that book showed up in the winner, like how to play. You should play aggressively when you're down 40 love in a game and
I
you're
saw that. Yeah.
yeah, typically you think I should play safely because if I have to win 3 points, right? But he says play aggressively. You might as well give it a shot at this point. You're already down a lot. So little things like that. There's a one of the epigraphs is not Brad Gilbert, but a different tennis book that talks about pushers or dinkers as they call it in the epigraph. And it kind of Connor's tennis strategy has become his life strategy of playing slow and steady and conservatively, not making mistakes. But that's also the thing that undergoes a transformation over his summer.
Yeah. And yet he ends up the winner, so to speak. Maybe. To be determined. Well, I love that. And even how you're quoting David Foster Wallace in his essays, like bringing them in, and Emily's giving him copies of that. That was great. Yeah, I
Yes.
love tennis in books, and I love tennis. And I tried to write a novel called 40 Love, but it didn't sell. But that's okay.
Was it also a pun on age? Was it 40
Yes,
years old?
I
Yes.
was falling in love again at 40.
And you, if I can turn the tables, you were married to a former tennis pro, right?
I am. Yes, I know. I was like, I won't even go there, but yes, I am. I am married to a former tennis pro turned producer. So, yes, I think about, and I was like you though, my like JV tennis team here in New York City. It's like
Uh,
not exactly sweeping the planet, but my husband grew up in Florida, playing at Bolletary and blah blah blah. So
yes.
that whole scene.
And he kind of had to. I mean, I think there's a reason the best players are from Florida and California. They have more access to courts there. They can play all year round.
Yeah, exactly. Also, my innate skill would not even be. I mean, even if I were to have grown up in Florida. Yeah, but that's funny. So this is going to be a movie. I read that, right? So what is the plan for that? Congratulations.
Thank you. It's in development. I'm adapting myself for Columbia Pictures, and we are. It's a very slow process. I finished the script, or at least so far, but they are trying to get a director now, and these things take interminably long times to come to fruition.
So exciting. Do you have casting preferences?
We have an actor who I can't mention publicly who's
Oh,
on board, but again, these things perhaps will drop out. Who knows? But we've got someone. Yes.
exciting. I'm picturing, well, maybe not. I was going to say I'm sort of picturing like a young Topher Grace or somebody like that, but maybe
You're
not.
not far off physically. They
Okay.
kind of do look alike. Yeah,
Right.
it's very close.
Okay, good. Excellent. Can you talk a little bit about how you got to this point in your career and like how you became a writer and all of that? What happened after your tennis career in high school came to a close?
My ignominious tennis career came to close. I've always wanted to be a fiction writer. Also wanted to be a screenwriter in college, but fiction was always my love, and didn't really start taking it seriously until I was about 24. I wrote a mediocre novel that did not sell, but fortunately, because it
Me
was
too.
not.
Around the same age. How about
Yeah.
that?
And aren't you glad it didn't get published and you don't have to have that carrying, toting around with you?
Yes.
So, but it got me an agent and it got me into graduate school for writing. And then in grad school, I started writing my first novel called Capitoil. And that did sell eventually, published in my early 30s, and have been writing ever since. And, doing other things at the time for the first few years of being a copy editor, being a tutor, doing other odd jobs here and there. But now I'm a full-time novelist and screenwriter.
So exciting. It's so cool. What are you working on now, aside from the script? Do you have a new novel in the works or no?
I am writing a middle grade novel, which is new for me, and who knows how it is. I've not really gotten much feedback on it yet, so it could be disastrous. But I'm trying my hand at one. I kind of want to write something that my kids could read because they can certainly not read The Winner now and
No,
hope never.
maybe never.
And working on more screenplays and starting to adapt other people's work. My wife, her name is Kate Greathead, is also a novelist. Her second book comes out in October, so we sometimes collaborate on shorter things, or we were thinking about collaborating on this middle grade novel, maybe not, but there's always various projects in the stew.
Let me give you some advice, not advice, but I have tried to write a middle grade novel recently and took it out on submission with my daughter, who is 10, which I think has a great premise. It's called The Diary Hoppers, about a group of girls who can jump back into their mom's diaries. I don't know. I thought that was great.
That is good. Yeah, that is good.
Thank you. I think it's really fun. And we did a good job. But the middle grade market is not great, apparently, as people often say. And we are currently now adapting it into a graphic novel.
Interesting. Okay, that's good to know and discouraging to know, but I hope it works out with a graphic novel at least. Do you know how to draw, or do you get
No, we
someone?
hired an illustrator, or we are in, I mean, he has started. We have a deal to hire. I mean, I haven't actually paid him or anything. I mean, I will. I promise. That didn't come out right.
We're gonna
That didn't
skip him.
we're in, I don't know, in talks, in contract. Anyway, an illustrator is working on it, and but adapting it has been kind of fun because it's so much easier. You just need really the dialogue and maybe like one little line for the graphic novel. And my kids are obsessed with graphic novels. So they're like, even if we finish this middle grade novel, we won't want to read it anyway. I'm like, well, I'm only doing it for you. Like, I don't need to write graphic novels for me, So that's actually been quite fun. But anyway.
And it's fun to adapt your own work into another medium, right?
It's a challenge.
Enjoyable. It's a challenge, but it's not too challenging. Is the
No. Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. It's sort of easier. Like, it's just, you just need the words. Like, and they're already there. It's like, yeah. So that's been kind of fun. But yeah, I'm sure you'll have much better luck than me with your middle grade. But that's been our journey to date.
Mine might be too dark, I think, for 10 or 11-year-olds, but we'll see.
Got it. Okay, maybe older middle grade. What advice do you have for aspiring novelists?
Oh boy, I mean, there's plenty of things to say, but I think the obvious one is just to read widely, to read beyond as much as you can beyond your instinctive tastes. I think we all gravitate to certain kinds of books, and while you should get better at writing or reading the books you want to write, it helps to read and stretch yourself, but ultimately to write the thing that you would want to see on a bookshelf, I think is the best advice. To the book that does not exist that only you could write, and not to worry about market demands or what reviewers would like, or even what your spouse or mom or best friend would like, but what would you like and want to see? And that will always be the best thing you produce.
Amazing. Is there anyone you're embarrassed to like show all these sex scenes to or anything? Like, did your mom read it?
She is not ready yet. Not really looking forward to her. But I've written some racy things in the past that I've gotten through. It's sort of like watching, a movie with your parents and a sex scene comes on. You don't want to be there, but at this age, I'm kind of okay with it.
You're like, I'm a grown-up, Zibby. What are you talking about?
My wife's extended family, when they read it, will be a different matter, just because it is a dissection of their culture. I'm certainly not Connor, but I'm closer to Connor than any other character in the book, and they're closer to the other characters. So we'll see how that goes. If I could have them all not read it, I would want that, but I think they will very much want to read it.
Well, you wouldn't be the first author to sort of blow up their summer community for the sake of a great book. So maybe it all works out in the end. Well, thanks for coming on. I really, really loved this book. It was just really fun and delicious and just kept turning. And I don't know, you did a really good job. It's really good.
Thank you so much, Zibby.
Yeah, really loved it. All right. Have a great day.
Bye. Take care.
Bye. Thanks for listening to Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. If you love it, please leave a review and follow us on social @Zibby Owens and @Zibby Readers.